We now move on to our second session for the evening, Picturing the Indian Subcontinent, with award-winning photojournalist Steve McCurry. Dinesh Khanna, Delhi-based photographer and co-founder of the Delhi Photo Festival, is here to introduce Steve McCurry and to facilitate an interaction with the audience for this session. This session is sponsored by Hitachi, India. I invite Dinesh Khanna to take the stage.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here as much as a fan as everyone else in this auditorium is. Steve, been watching your work for years. I must confess publicly that I'm extremely jealous of the man, and and totally envy what he's done all his life. Congratulations for all the work you've done. Two other things I'd like to say. One, thanks to Hindu. In a time when photograph seems to be disappearing from the newspapers and magazines, certainly the kind of work which one enjoys seeing. For Hindu to call Steve and a photographer to come and present his work, to me seems like a bit of a contradiction, but I'm so glad that this is happening. Secondly, obviously the session is not going to be as fiery as the previous one, unless Steve has something which we've never seen before. But I'm looking forward to this as much as you are. I'd like to just read out a couple of things about Steve, the way I feel about his work. In his introduction on the website, Steve says that he's often been asked by people how to become a photographer. And in his reply, he has never talked about what camera to buy, what lenses to use, or what techniques to master. His emphatic piece of advice is, if you want to be a photographer, first leave home. And if there's one photographer who's taken his advice very seriously, it's Steve McCurry himself. For him, travel and photography have been great companions. They don't just complement each other in a way that life for him for the past 30 odd years, which is what he's been doing. But for him, traveling the world and experiencing different cultures and seeing how different people live has been the driving force, and to my mind has dictated his photographic vision. Steve has photographed people and their lives on 6 continents of the world, and in countries so numerous that when I asked his office to tell me, how many countries has he visited, they refused to even hazard a guess. Maybe Steve would want to talk about it during his presentation. I even wanted to ask them, so how many rolls of film has he shot? How many frames has he got? How many cameras has he used? In his entire career. But there was no one who wanted to actually risk trying to, come to a number. So that's the kind of work Steve has been doing in these last 3 decades. I also did an email interview with him where I asked him what he finds fascinating about India, and why is it that he's been here 85 times, I believe. This is his 86th trip to India. And this is what he had to say. He says that India is so culturally rich with its different religions and the contrast to many people living in medieval conditions, right alongside ever-growing and a very big middle class, that it's hard to find another country with such a rich and varied geography and culture, and amidst so much chaos and confusion. I mean, obviously a photographer's delight, and that's what India is, and Steve's work has very well shown that over the years. This is probably a good preamble to Steve's talk about picturing the Indian subcontinent. However, before I invite him to come and share his work with us, I must share my awe and wonder what I feel for him, not just as a photographer, but also as a person. Steve has done over a dozen books, has done probably 100 or a couple of 100 exhibitions. He's worked on countless magazine articles, newspaper stories, and these would have been the result of thousands of fantastic and many of them iconic photographs that he's made over the years. These photographs would have been culled from hundreds and thousands of images which he would have shot, which would have been selected after countless hours of sitting hunched over editing tables when he was shooting film, and today sitting in front of the computer screen. These hundreds of thousands of images would have been shot after spending an enormous number of hours walking miles and miles in all kinds of weather conditions, in all kinds of villages, towns, and cities around the world. To get to these places, he would have taken hundreds of flights, many of them at unearthly hours of the morning or the night, traveled many miles in buses, trains, taxis across all kinds of terrain, and varying degrees of discomfort. He would have spent only he knows how many days and nights in hotel rooms in strange beds, far away from anything remotely resembling home. This is the side of a documentary photographer, and Steve, I believe, prefers to call himself that most of us don't see and definitely don't realize. His work we see, but what the man has done and what he's gone through is quite another story. Steve McCurry's photographs show conflicts, vanishing cultures, ancient traditions, contemporary places, and his portraits bring us face to face with the soul of his subjects. All these collectively form a significant part of our memory and visual history of our communities today. These have obviously and deservedly won a lot of accolades and numerous awards for him, but today I would like to salute him for his dedication, his perseverance, and the sheer will to keep going and producing this invaluable body of work. May I present Steve McCurry.
Thank you for coming. It's an honor to be here. I think this is the first actual presentation of my work that I've made in India. Believe it or not, I've been here since I came in 1978 on a 6-week trip. That 6 weeks turned into 2 years. I actually got here, I got so kind of blown away by the country and the culture and the variety, and I literally stayed continuously for 2 years. I went to Nepal because of the visa thing, and I went to, but I actually used to stay at a guest house just around the corner. It was called Vishwa Yuva Kendra, and I stayed in on that first trip to India. I stayed in a dormitory. It was, I think, 40 rupees a night. And I used to pass this, I used to take the bus down to Connaught Place, and I remember passing, this incredible facility here. One morning I was having breakfast, and suddenly all the staff raced out of the hotel and went out in the back of the, and I figured, suddenly the place was empty. And it turned out that Sanjay Gandhi's plane had just literally crashed between, their family home and Vishwa Yuva Kendra. So I have a great attachment to Delhi, to India. I'm traveled more than most Indians, I suppose. I was arrested once. I made the mistake of going into Bhutan with a journalist who convinced me to go in without having our passport stamped. And then we came back in again. We didn't have, so we basically got arrested, and she got deported. And I went to a police station. I had to spend the night in the police station. It got very, very strict. But I've had great help from so many wonderful people. Avinash Pashrisha was one of the first people I met in Delhi when I got here. It was a big help. There's another guy named Deepak Puri from Time Magazine, who's an absolute magician and a good friend and has been a big help over the years. I've done many different stories for National Geographic. Probably my two favorite stories were the monsoon. In that 2 years, while I was here, I had lived through 2 monsoons, and I had done most of my travel by train. So I don't think I took one flight in that 2 years except to fly up to Kathmandu. So I had read Paul Theroux's book, The Great Railway Bazaar, and so at the end of that 2 years, I wrote a proposal to National Geographic saying, I want to do this story about, this incredible train network throughout India. Anyway, let me show my pictures. One thing, as I travel around the world, part of what I do is I have about 20 different themes that I just kind of file back in the back of my mind, and as I'm looking around in the various places, if I see something which fits into one of those themes, I'll shoot it. I'm interested in everything, but these are 20 or 30 separate things that I'm interested in. So let me just start. Is it possible to get the lights a little bit lower, especially on the stage? In fact, if you could take it down to just to take the light off completely, if that's possible, on the two chairs. Yeah, because that'll show. Okay, so one of my themes, one of the things which I'm always interested in is people reading in different cultures, different countries. And so I'm going to start the presentation off, since this is about literature and writing and all that. I just thought I'd start with this. So, I've been kind of doing this for, I don't know, since I started photography. So let me just go back again. This is Thailand, Yemen, back to Thailand. This is China from the early 80s. Kabul, Calcutta, Rajasthan, Kabul, Burma, I don't know what's going on. This is Iraq, after the Iraqi invasion. Thailand, Tibet, it's Hong Kong. That light sort of snuck on again. I don't know if you could sorry, could you just lower the light, please, on these two white chairs? This is Burma, Nova Scotia, this is in a place in Rajasthan. Brindavan, Tibet, Tokyo. This is Bombay. Sorry to hit you. Could you just turn the lights down? Is that possible? Because the pictures really show the best when it's kind of dark. Is that okay? This actually across the street from my apartment in New York. That's better. Thank you. It's a Sikh student in Kabul, Burma, Afghanistan. It's in Kuwait. There's a reader on the left. This is in California. The amazing thing about these monks never lay down. They sleep sitting up. And it's in France, Sri Lanka. One of my themes is also sleep. So this sort of doubles up on it's Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Italy. It's Varanasi during the monsoon. Yemen. I think the horse was reading over his shoulder. This is Brazil. A little poetic license there. This is China, Afghanistan. We were, this is in Jalalabad, there were all these airstrikes, and this is my guide, and he was using this hole as kind of a bomb shelter, so when the planes flew over, he'd get into the, get into the hole. Kabul. Old Delhi train station. Italy. Italy again. Thailand. Istanbul. Ireland. I love this. I always try and incorporate a dog or a cat in a picture. I love this little dog over here. This is in Rome. Cuba. This is a movie studio in Rome, Cinecittà. The cemetery in São Paulo, Brazil. Venice. Rome. It's in Jaipur. Kuala Lumpur. Pushkar. It's Korea. It's in Serbia. Aung San Suu Kyi. From 1996. Germany, Jaipur, Italy, Sri Lanka, back to Pushkar, Pushkar again. This is a train trip from, I was going out of Madras, and they had these, the whole, one of the compartments full of books. So this was a bookstall on the train. So that's my reading section. Just to go back to one of the stories I worked on back in 1996 was 50 years of India's independence. So I was given a 4-month assignment by National Geographic to go anywhere and just to photograph anything that would kind of give a sense of, where India was at. Or it was more of a poetic piece. I would say I wasn't trying to show everything. There's vast parts of Indian society and culture that were not included, but this was just sort of my one of the great kind of visual places in India, of course, is Jodhpur, that one area which is the old quarter, which is, much of it's painted that wonderful blue and that incredible architecture. This was, I was there, I don't know, 10 years ago, and this is just after Holi. Somebody had put all this sort of handprints on the wall, some kids or whatever. And I saw this design of the walls and the that ochre color on the right. And people were coming and going, and I thought, if I just stand here, I'm going to get some kind of wonderful moment. So I stayed for about an hour, and then I came back the next day and shot again. I was doing another story on Bombay, and it was the one rainy afternoon, and we were at a stoplight, and this mother and child came up to the window, and I literally just instinctively picked up my camera, shot 2 frames, and then completely forgot about it until I got back to the magazine, and I looked at it, thought that's a kind of a nice picture. I thought it was somebody else's, but I had my name on it. So there was a New Zealand photographer named Brian Brake, who back in the early '60s had done a photo essay on the monsoon for Life magazine and Parry Match. And I remember that. I was 12 years old at the time. I remember what an impact that photo essay had on me. And I just, 20 years later, here I am in the monsoon, and I thought again, I have to kind of reinvent this story. So I spent, I think, 6 months traveling all over India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Indonesia. But my favorite picture from the assignment was this kind of pre-monsoon shot between Jodhpur and Jaisalmer. And it was I was in a taxi, and suddenly this sandstorm whipped up, and I rolled the windows up, and I didn't want my cameras to get. I thought, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be shooting, and so I thought, oh no. And then I got frantic, thinking, well, I got to find something to shoot. So we're driving down the road. I knew that the dust storm wasn't going to last for that long. And eventually, I saw these women off on the side of the road who were doing road work, and so I jumped out and ran across the field. And this is an old Delhi, Chandichok. So of course, the rain starts, and it renews life, and it cools everything off, and it's a great time of year. This is in Goa. I literally went all over the country. Varanasi. This is in Porbandar. And it was just, the streets are flooded, and people, life goes on. They have to go to work. They got to go shopping. And, what can you do? You just have to have a cup of tea. So I'm walking down the street, and I was on this curb, and he was down on the street. And as I was getting ready to shoot, all the people from the windows and the roofs were kind of yelling to this guy that, this guy's going to take your picture. So this poor tailor who had lost everything in his shop and was salvaged, so much he kind of was able to had this embarrassed, self-conscious smile on his face, and it ended up on the cover of National Geographic. But the best part of the story is that the manufacturer of the sewing machine actually tracked this guy down and sent him a new sewing machine, which was really cool. So that was a great story. So that's me when I had hair and a beard and But when you can't see the street, you don't know if there's a dip or a hole or there's a sidewalk or a curb. So you really have to literally spend the whole day just shuffling down the street, because heaven forbid you fall and you lose all your camera equipment. And then, of course, you get back to the hotel at night, And I mean, amazing situation, but your feet are all shriveled up and they're like prunes, and it was it's in Nepal. This is also important, but I love this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures because the people in the house had, the dog wanted to go out on the street. He's a pet. So they kind of, as a kind of a joke on the dog, they open the door, the dog goes out, but then he can't get back in, they shut the door. So he's like completely freaked out that he can't get, he's on that little piece of cement and just hoping that they're going to let the, this is actually Mark Twain as a trip to Porbandar. Pashupatinath in Kathmandu during a festival. Indonesia. Bangladesh. Of course, this is in Bombay. This is Chowpatty Beach. So right after I took this picture, I was up in an apartment building. I went down into the water. And, there's all ththese people, and they've been walking perhaps for hours. They're tired, maybe exhausted, dehydrated, maybe drunk, or whatever. And so I went in with one group with this enormous Ganesh, and I'm up to my chest in water. And these teenagers came over and started pounding on me. And they got my camera, they put it underwater. My assistant, every piece of the camera equipment, everything, every lens was ruined. And I thought these guys were going to drown me because they kept, Anyway, fortunately the people that I was with came and sort of saved me. But that was my last trip to Chowpatty Beach. But I do have unfortunately I don't have the picture. I had the last frame before, and it has all this kind of water damage. So I think, I may be wrong, but I think that I'm not sure if any photographer had actually juxtaposed these old steam locomotives with the Taj Mahal. If somebody had prior to this, I never saw it. But when I got the assignment, I actually made the proposal to National Geographic. I had been to Agra, but I wasn't sure if the proximity of the train line was near the Taj. So, as you probably all know better than I, there's there's Agra Fort Station, but there's a railroad yard right there. It's a huge, with lots of steam locomotives. Back then there were. Anyway, I went back to this same location 2 or 3 years ago, and the track was gone. Those trees in the background are all grown up. There was no way to really reference exactly where I shot the picture, except for the other track, which goes over the river into Agra Fort Station. So this is outside of Peshawar, and it was like, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning, and we had ordered some tea and toast and whatnot. But that door was locked between kind of the kitchen car and where we were sitting, so they literally had to pass these breakfast trays on the outside of the train. And my assistant, who kind of saw it first, and I looked at it, I couldn't believe it, so he actually held my legs while I leaned out, and I thought, my God, if this guy lets me go, I'm going to go crashing out of the train. Photographing an iconic piece of architecture like the Taj is always a challenge because, you know, it's been photographed. I mean, Raghu Rai did a great book on the Taj. I mean, lots of wonderful photographers have shot it. So I just wanted to do something a little. Some of these pictures, like that one, now they've had trees in that location just to kind of protect the area. This is in also in Bombay. So you have this enormous, this is this fellow Bogeylaw. I'm not sure if he still has that car collection, but, this was the governor of Maharashtra. And then this is down near, across the street from an art gallery, I forget the name of it. This is, I love this picture. This is from, I was doing an assignment for a company, and this is in the hospital, Fortis Hospital in Jaipur. And this is a premature child. But I just love, he has this expression, he's trying to like help the doctor with the stethoscope. And he's like, oh, that's so cold, you know. And it's like this kind of cheer, you know. It's just, and he has this kind of really wonderful expression on his face. So I've always loved that picture. This is actually in outside of Karachi. This is in Bombay. Photographers love shipbreaking. It's such a surreal situation having these enormous sort of ships literally on the beach, and there are all these people. I'm not sure why that's doing that, but oh, so this is Allahabad, which is again this incredible epic event, and this. Sorry. Yeah, it could be the phone, yeah. Okay. But I need it for the... Okay. You never know if I get a phone call. No, it has the time on it. So these are these pontoon bridges, which... and it's just... you just can't believe the mass of humanity. And again, I think every photographer in the world now is in Allahabad. It's this is not the Kum, it's something else. But I just, you know, we've all seen these. They do this in order to get donations and whatnot. But it's great kind of theater. Varanasi, these are some children who are out selling these flowers for offerings. It's a Kalmar regiment outside near Jaisalmer. This is kind of a... This is another kind of a weird situation. I was near, this is near Srinagar, and I was driving on the road. This was in December, and this shepherd was in a tree. Okay. Calcutta. I think if somebody said to me, here's a blank check, and by the way, if anybody has any blank checks out in the audience, I'm joking. If somebody said, here's a blank check, go to any city in the world and do a body of work, do a book, I'd go to Calcutta. It's that interesting and that vibrant, and it's just rich. It's an amazing place. So this is, I was in a Parsi fire temple, somehow I got in there, and I'm shooting on Muhammad Ali Road in Bombay, and the mood came up out of nowhere. Just suddenly it showed up right in like the perfect place in the picture. Now there's a flyover on this, and that's gone. This is gone too. Those wonderful, hand-painted movie posters, which we all remember, these hoardings, which used to be all over, Connaught Place and different. Indian wedding, Kathakali trainees, kind of young novice. This is Juhu. This is one of these this has been photographed a million times, but this is the first time for me. This is in Dal Lake, and I went out, I must have gone out about 10 times with these flower vendors. And I was waiting for the right location, the right light. And eventually I liked the mood of this particular location. This is holy, of course. This is one of those public works projects before the monsoon. They're building kind of a small pond or I did another story on nomads for National Geographic. This was part of that story. Back to Calcutta. I went back to there's an astrologer here on the Ghats in Varanasi, and I went back recently, and that whole wall, that poor fellow has passed away, but they painted over the all that wonderful signage, and this is in Jodhpur, Aishwarya Rai. I did the last roll of Kodachrome, and the one person I wanted to photograph was her. But unfortunately, she was in Sri Lanka at a film awards ceremony. So this is back in 93, I believe. This was part of my 50 years of India's independence. I was photographing him in his apartment at a Cuff Parade, and I was moving his paintings around, and one of them sort of split down the middle. He was very, don't worry about it, doesn't matter. That's okay. No, he was very... Jantar Mantar, and those movie posters were always so wonderful. People would use them for roofs and for shelter and for like a covering. Gujarat. Oh, this is a dentist in Ujjain. I just love kind of these little kind of. This is from, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago, up in Ladakh. This is about 15 minutes before sunrise. I'm very proud of that because I hate to get up in the morning. But you know, in Rajasthan, in in like May, it gets so bright so fast and gets so hot that you really have to get on the street. There's thousands of incredible pieces of history and architecture, and there's a stepwell in Buj. But this country has such a wealth of history and things like this that it's this location. It's almost, you wouldn't even know it was there unless there's a little teeny sign off on this side street. And unless you have, I mean, if this was like in New York, it would be, you'd have to pay like $10 to get in to see it, you know. Darjeeling. This is another stepwell, which I've cropped off part of it. You don't see the whole thing, but these birds would fly. This is early in the morning. They were coming and going. It's a really wonderful kind of design. So this is part of my, so the last roll of Kodachrome, I actually got Kodak to give me the last manufactured roll of Kodachrome, which was, in my view, the greatest film ever made. And so I started, I wanted to do iconic people and places. So being a New Yorker, I wanted to find somebody like Robert De Niro to start the thing. And then I thought, where else can I go? Go to, I wanted it to be sort of an important statement. So I went back to these Rabari shepherds, Rabari nomads, who their life is quickly changing and vanishing because of the modern world we live in. So I went back and this is an old kind of magician, or who's incredible face and incredible hair and beard. So I just photographed randomly just members of this one particular village. This is not part of that project. This is in Kashmir. I just love this intensity on this guy's eyes. This was part. Sorry, this is also part of the last roll of Kodachrome. Amir Khan at home with his cat. Again, anytime there's a cat or a dog, again, this was. I had never actually photographed Amitabh Bachchan, so this was a great kind of, went to his home, and then we went to his office, and quite a imposing figure. Because when I first came to India, of course, he was the main movie star by a factor of 10. This is a Kuchi nomad up in walking with his herd of camels in Srinagar. It's in Bombay. It's the little girl, girl on the, it was very bright, and I wanted to just make some pictures on this femme in the porch. I love the way the shape of her handle, the umbrella in her hand kind of mirror. This is in Brindavan. this is this little widow who was probably in her late 80s was such an inspiring figure to me. I was just so amazed at how she could actually move down the street. She had gone from the ashram back to her where she was staying, and she had been there for most of her life. So I was kind of stalking her, photographing her. And after a few minutes, she kind of caught sight of me, and so we started with my sort of translator. We started talking, and so she invited us to her home, and she offered us tea, and she was like had a this incredible sense of humor and very generous, and I just thought, somebody who has such misfortune in her life and has such difficulty and this condition, that still has a good disposition. I thought, man, what an incredible human being. So I'm going to run through. I have just a few minutes. I'm going to kind of speed through the rest of my presentation and then leave some time for Q&A. But I would just, again, I would say that most of if you take the area from Afghanistan to Cambodia, this is about 80% of what I've, kind of my life's work. So I'm just going to run through these really quick. Of course, Aung San Suu Kyi, one of the most amazing individuals. This is kind of old Rangoon. It's the world's smallest monk. This is more, when I see these people, because eventually this is going to be me, trying to get around like that. So I'm fascinated with how, age and how life and the impermanence of things. This is a statue in Shwedagon Pagoda, and it's this old venerable monk that he has this, his devotees, his disciples will come and hold a glass of water to his lips, or I guess the guy was a heavy smoker, they hold cigarettes to his lips just out of. This is a monk, which Angkor Wat. People forget this was a Hindu temple complex. There's a lot of monasteries around, but this was all the iconography, all the style, the reliefs are all Hindu mythology. I just love this guy's hairdo. Another one of my lifelong themes has been Buddhism. So this is the pet. It wasn't threatening to. Sri Lanka. Of course, the Dalai Lama. So this is a series of pictures. I eventually want to do a book on Buddhism. This last picture was Shaolin Monastery in China. This is a Zen practitioner in one of the concentration camps in Poland. This is down in South India, near to, it's a 4-hour drive from Bangalore. Tibet, back to India. Bodh Gaya. That guy was just enormous. These are just people on the street. I didn't, they're not, and it's not in the studio, they're just people that I found fascinating. So I'm in Tibet in this very kind of mellow, contemplative mood, get on a plane to go home, and the next day I woke up and this is from the roof of my building in New York City. So I just, I just, as a kind of a autopilot, just started photographing. And again, these are from the roof of my building. I literally then just went down to ground zero and spent the rest of the day the next morning. I thought the whole lower Manhattan had been demolished, but so I went back to Afghanistan, and because suddenly everybody was wondering, like, who are these people, and how did that happen, and where how can we, So these are pictures from various trips to Afghanistan. It's just a place which, unfortunately, I think it's not going to have a good ending. And it just shows the fact that after 10 years of Soviet occupation, the Americans, we thought we were, but we're back in the same boat. I just put these two side by side. That's Lebanon. Just kids will be kids, and they'll just find any place to play. Herat. Whenever I'm in Kandahar, I always go back to this guy as my get my teeth fixed. Opium. Nine o'clock at night, this kid's out selling mangoes on the street in Kabul. This guy works in a candy factory. So it's a brick kiln. Even though these women are completely covered, it's still forbidden I could have gotten in serious trouble if somebody had seen me taking that picture. So I'm sort of reaching the end here. This is a series of, one thing you can do in Afghanistan is until a girl reaches puberty, you're fully free to photograph. There's no restrictions. The parents are more than happy to let you photograph their daughters at this age. They're still, which brings me to this picture. Thank you. This is really, once in a lifetime, for me anyway, a picture where you get where the stars align and you get the right light, the right color palette, the look. It's just, and it's like there's a ambiguity to her expression And she's clearly, her face is a bit dirty, her shaw's ripped, but she has this sort of very direct, there's a sense of fortitude, and she really has this confidence. So we still, every day, get letters and inquiries, and I mean, literally, this is a picture which every day of my life I'm involved on one level or another with this. It's inescapable. But I really look at the glass, we were talking about earlier, the glass half full. I think it's great. I think it's really a picture which I'm very proud to have made and to be associated with. Just prior to that picture, she had been a bit shy, and the teacher in the classroom had said, let this photographer take your picture because, we're 2 or 3 million refugees. We've been driven from our country. People have to know what's going on, and people need to know that these refugees exist, et cetera, et cetera. So from that, she dropped her hands down. I moved over 2 feet and then made that other picture. So I went back literally 17 years later. Again, there has been so much interest to try and find out, who was she, how can we help her, or whatever. So we went back and only with the picture, and it was like a complete miracle that we were able to find. So the first big break was finding her brother, and you can see the similarity with the eyes, and then we eventually met her. This is her 17 years. She had been approximately 12, and now she was approximately around 30. Of course, the Afghans in that particular don't really know their precise age, so that was the kind of the best guess. But all the facial scars and moles completely matched. So it was a complete 100%. So that's another sort of view of her. And the last 2 pictures, this is her and her brother. A school which we had raised about $1 million for Afghan, especially Afghan girls' education. And so we started a school in Kabul with that money. And her picture's there. So I wanted to get a picture of her for the cover of National Geographic. So that's her at the doctor's office holding a picture of herself as a young girl. But when I took the when I took this, I only made like 4 frames, 4 pictures. And I went to change my film, and she just wandered off. She thought I was finished because I would, and so I was hoping and praying that one of those pictures was in focus. So that was the cover. So this is this is a real thing. It's not it is a joke, but it's a joke from Harvard. Harvard does these kind of lampoons and parodies on various publications. So they actually printed this, and National Geographic cooperated because it's kind of an honor to be chosen as a spoof. And literally, National Geographic called me and said, would you be willing to photograph Paris Hilton dressed as the Afghan girl? And I said, absolutely not. So they just photoshopped her face into the. But that really, and that's a very famous Afghan warlord. I'm joking. That's me. Anyway, thank you very much for coming. I think there's a time for some Q&A. I hope none of those people that were on the panel asked many questions about the economy or the political. No, it's okay. Actually, it was my phone that was making that thing. It was on my. Oh, sure. Okay. No, that's somebody else's. So, are there any questions? Or? Yeah, we can.
Do you want to put up the lights just so we can see the hands there? Before we take questions, there's one question I like to ask Steve. That you've done something very famous recently, which is the Pirelli calendar. Any reason why you didn't show that or talk about it?
I should. I was actually thinking I should have shown that. The Pirelli calendar is. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. The Pirelli calendar is one of the great photographic assignments in the world, and not many people know about it. But you're given unlimited everything. It's like the Kingfisher calendar times 10. It's the calendar's been nude up until the year that I did it.
Yeah.
So once they offered me the assignment, we were thinking about how can I do this in kind of my own way. So what I came up with was I decided to pick 12 models that have charities or doing work with education and whatever around the world, so environmental. So we found these incredible, beautiful models that also are doing work like building schools in Haiti and Indonesia and different places. And I think it was I think we made some good, they're all clothed, very sensuous and a bit sexy, but they're all a lot of dignity, and I think we've treated them as real people, and I think that the calendar has sort of given them a voice for their own, their own causes and their own.
I thought that was a very significant thing to do, and I was wondering if Pirelli knew that this is where you're going to go, or did you get the assignment and they decided and they said, oh well, so we have to go with you?
No, they actually, it only came up after they offered me the assignment, and then I was trying to figure, this really had to be kind of an extension of what I do anyway, and although I'm a big fan of the female figure, that's a joke, it just seemed like this was more in keeping with what I do and my own approach to photography and all that. So that's what we did.
Great. Questions, anyone? Can we get mics to people?
Hello. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you so much for all the wonderful pictures and for sharing the story behind some of them. It was really great to hear. My question was that since you had the opportunity to film the last roll of Kodachrome,
That's me. That's my phone. Sorry.
How did you decide who to photograph or what to photograph and where to photograph that one last roll?
Well, I had a film crew with me. We're doing a film, and actually the film crew, that took a lot of the energy and the time and the effort. So because we started with De Niro, when we got to Bombay, I thought, let's continue. I mean, Amitabh Bachchan's one of the most famous Indians ever. So we just went ahead and we kind of rolled with the kind of the actor theme. And then I had just come off this nomad story, so we went back to Rajasthan. I wanted to photograph these nomads because as we all know, with the roads and the fences and property, I mean, 50 years ago, there wasn't all this development. And for a nomad to just wander around Gujarat or whatever, it's gotten very complicated, and it's only going to get more. So that's kind of almost a thing of the past now. So I thought that let's just spend a little bit of time on this and pay homage to to them in a kind of a very small way.
Can we get a mic here, please?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for this interactive session. I'd just like to ask, you have always worked for the National Geographic, which is a unique magazine in every sense. But would you like to recommend a different set of rules for news photographers?
Then National Geographic?
No, I mean, you have always worked for the National Geographic, which is a rather interactive magazine and doesn't always focus on current events. But as far as newspaper photographers are concerned, would you like to recommend a different set of rules for them?
No. I mean, in terms of how one operates or the ethics of photography, or?
I mean, everything.
No, I think, no, a lot of the stories I worked on for National Geographic, I was working for years side by side, wire photographers, newspaper photographers. I was in Beirut. I was, you know, in the Philippines during that whole upheaval, and on and on and on and on. And the only difference was that my deadline was like in 6 months. And in the case of the wires and the newspapers, their deadline was like that day. But as far as how we approached, how we were shooting the story and covering the story, it was pretty much the same, except that I was doing a kind of a broader coverage, more than just the news. I was trying to show the context of the story, but otherwise it was pretty much the same.
We have a question here.
Hi. Hello. Hi. So apart from the portraits that you have clicked, where you would have obviously taken permission from the subjects, do you actually take permission from people who you photograph?
There's two kinds of working that I feel. One is doing a deliberate portrait. Obviously, you need a cooperation, and this is a collaborative effort, a portrait. There are times, I think, in photography, it's always a moment-to-moment, case-by-case situation of privacy and respecting people's, you know, if people don't want to be photographed, I won't photograph them. I think there are times, though, as you kind of wander through life and down the street, there are times when you want to capture life unfolding kind of a candidly way. And you have to, and so that's not asking permission, that's just shooting. And, but, you know, thinking, is this the right thing to do? Is this ethical, blah, blah, blah. And, but you can't ask everybody for permission. Otherwise, if there's somebody sleeping on the street, you can't wake the guy up and say, can I take your picture? Or somebody's reading.
And sign the contract.
Yeah, and here's a release.
Release form.
So I don't get into all that. And I think you just have to be respectful of people in general as best as you can.
Thanks.
Hello, sir. Here, this side.
Can we take one more? Yeah. Last question.
Yeah.
I believe we have to leave the hall. Yeah,
I can ask.
sure.
Yeah. Hello, sir. It was certainly a visual delight looking at the pictures. You know, this is actually my very first question on photography, you know, first ever. But you know, it's just a commentary. It's not a commentary, it's just a simple question that how do you justify editing in photography? How close is it to manipulating, or how far is it? How do you justify that?
Well,
when you say editing, do you mean changing the picture itself, or cutting out one picture out of 100?
No,
Because
editing as
the word
in...
editing seems to have changed in
yeah,
timing.
I found out.
What is done on
I
Photoshop
totally
and all.
understand your question.
Yeah, thank you.
But we come from another generation, and editing, I mean, I don't know, if you look it up in the dictionary, I think you'll find that the editing actually was a selection process. You take 100 pictures, then you edit the pictures and find the one that you think is the best. But your point is manipulation and all that.
Exactly.
I think that if we're talking about journalism, we're talking about journalism?
Not really. The basic editing that you do on Photoshop as well, you know, just
Well,
to bring out the effects as well.
Right. I understand your question
Yeah.
because this is, I think if you're a journalist, there's ethics regarding changing the picture to something other than what it was. What I think, well, in the case of magazines like National Geographic, I'm sure the press here in India, the picture has to be true to the situation. You might want to darken it, you might want to light it. It is a contrast question. You want to correct that perhaps. But you can't change reality. That's it. Now, if you're a fine art photographer, you can do anything you want because it's all your own imagination. But if you're a documentary photographer or journalist, photojournalist, then it has to reflect what was really kind of there.
So you justify that it should be done, just to bring out the effects, the editing is absolutely fine.
Well, let me just repeat. No, the point is that in journalism, if you're working for a magazine or a newspaper, or you're doing a documentary, what you present has to reflect the reality of the situation. If you start moving stuff around, if you go to the Associated Press guidebook of ethics, which is a good reference for this kind of question, so does that answer your question? No, it doesn't answer your question.
That's
Do you understand?
absolutely.
Well, there are different genres of photography. So what Steve's talking about is in documentary and journalistic photography, you don't mess with it at all. Editing it all, if at all, is you shoot 50 pictures and you select one to say this is what reflects reality, the way you want to see it. But you don't change or alter that at all. But there are other genres like fine art photography, for instance, where it's coming more from your mind rather than recording reality, where you have the freedom to do what you want.
Let's just take one more question. That's kind of an odd point to end on. Is there one more question back here? Yeah.
Can you switch on that mic, please? Can't hear you. Yeah, that works now.
Yeah. Very light-hearted question. Love your work. Just a simple question. Nikon or Canon?
Oh. I
think we can take one more question.
I love this kind of
That's
question.
not a question. Steve here.
Hello.
It's a question out of curiosity. So in your slideshow, Africa is missing very conspicuous by its absence. So
You know what? If I had, we edited about 50 pictures out of this before I started. I would have been more than happy to have a 4-hour session.
But also the title of Steve's talk was picturing the Indian subcontinent, so that would be really.
And then I put some other pictures on there.
But one more real question.
Excuse me, sorry. Thank you for joining us. It's a real treat. We've grown up on your photos, really. Your photographs say a lot. You leave it to the reader to kind of interpret it in their own way, in a sense. But when do we read your autobiography? Are you planning to pen down your stories? Because really, I think a lot of people I know would love to hear, about all the places you've seen, the stories you've, kind of collected over the years.
Yeah, I'm working on a book which is coming out in September. It's not an autobiography, but it is some stories behind the pictures. But that whole autobiography thing is going to have to wait until for another time, I'm afraid.
Sorry, do we have to wind up? Yeah? You want to flash a card? I'm missing.
It's a wrap. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Going to downstairs.